Welcome to Azeroth United, a weekly podcast about World of Warcraft. My name is Denethar, and I am your host.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. It's Wednesday night in Azeroth, and we have a great show for you. We're going to be talking primarily about the Legion remix that has overtaken World of Warcraft. And I know a lot of people are doing things other than Legion remix, but this is getting a lot of the attention, and a lot of my attention, in all honesty. So this is going to be the focus of the episode. We're going to kind of give our first impressions of remix, second time around, the remix, and we're just going to kind of get a feel for where things are and where we expect things to go. So aside from that, we do have a little bit of midnight news as well as some more within news that we're going to go over. And it's the show. I also wanted to kind of do a touch point on World of Warcraft as a whole in terms of the systems of World of Warcraft versus the way that Blizzard is doing things now with these timed events. It's kind of an interesting situation. So we'll get into all that. We'll talk about systems in WoW and how they've worked in the past and how they might work going forward. So, So aside from that, we're going to just get into last week in WoW. So yeah, last week was pretty much 99% Legion remix. I did log on to my mains to check Vault, but that's about it. And in all honesty, I didn't even do a whole bunch of Vault events last week, so it was really just a quiet week in terms of activities in the War Within. So leading up to remix, not a whole lot going on there. As far as remix goes, and we'll get into all of the actual gameplay systems in remix and how the whole thing is working currently in a little bit, but right off the bat, I just want to say, so I started off with a Death Knight, which my main character, the one within, is a Death Knight. But since I have two accounts, I thought, well, I'll make a Death Knight on the other account. That way I can get all the transmogs and everything for that, and do the experience, the class order hall and everything on the other account. Which Death Knight's actually one of the better tanks. They're not doing crazy damage, although I am playing Sandlane, which I had not done previously. I've always done Deathbringer, so Sandlane's kind of fun. I'm really liking it. It's really more focused on the Dancing Rune weapon cooldown versus the Deathbringer cooldown, the 45-second cooldown. So it's just a slight difference in the gameplay. I like it. I think it's fun. I did do Frost as well, and Frost is fun, but as a DPS character in Remix, so the way that you can have fun if you're playing a damage character, either you and Blizzard is putting in a fix for this, so it's not like this is a permanent thing. But right now, tanks are doing almost as much damage as DPS, and their survivability is through the roof. So if you're playing a DPS character, you're pretty much limited to dungeons and raids, and you go in there and there's always somebody else who's been playing nonstop since it released, and so you're not even really doing a whole bunch of damage. So I don't know, I haven't had fun doing melee DPS. That being said, I did start a rogue as well. I've been wanting to do a rogue, and so I did that as well. But so I got rogue, and then on the other account I did a druid and a warrior, because my thought was, with the druid, I said, well, if I can tank and I can heal, because that's a good way to get into groups, is just go in as a healer. Everybody's killing stuff so fast anyway, it doesn't matter. So yeah, that was kind of the thought. So most of the attention's been on the Death Knight and focusing on getting that character leveled up, maxed out, getting her gear and whatnot. So I mean that's essentially all I've been doing. It is a little weird going through Legion again, but with a slightly different twist. So like Mr. Pandaria, I had done 10, 12 years ago, 14 years ago now. Legion, I've done so many times since Legion came out. You level up on all, and you're like, ooh, I'll do Legion this time. and you run through Legion. So it's not like I've been missing Legion necessarily. And it is interesting with the phased rollout, so that we only have the Emerald Nightmare and Trial of Valor raids. That is a little weird. I know some people have been saying, "Oh, it's great because then you can focus on the other content," and that's true. You can, but you know, the best way to level up or to increase your stats is by going through the raid. So, and like I said, we'll get into all that in a little bit later. So, as far as the phase 1 Legion remix so far, it's really good. I'm having a great time. Some of the systems that didn't make a lot of sense when they announced what they were going to do, now that we're living with them, it's like, okay, I get how this works now. So it's fine. Having a good time going into, or, you know, we're into week 2 now. So, but yeah, aside from that, that's pretty much, I mean, this weekend, the wife didn't work. So, and our daughter is out of town. So it's just the 2 of us in the house. And so we pretty much just sat around all day, Saturday and Sunday, playing Legion remix, which was a lot of fun. At one point it was like, should we eat dinner? Maybe we should eat dinner. So, yeah, it's a good time. I don't know. I had fun with it, and I'm really enjoying it. So, but you know, I always get the alt itch where like I want to try different characters. I can't just sit and play one character forever. I have to do other things and play other characters. So it's my curse. It's my burden that I have to carry. So, yeah, that's pretty much what I got up to last week. So I will get into all of the Legion remix details and my thoughts and opinions on everything when we get to the main topic. But, for now, that's pretty much, and I'm sure that most people, that's pretty much all they got up to last week is Legion remix. So, definitely interesting time. So, yeah. So, with that said, I think we're just going to jump into the news, and then we will hit our main topic because we do have a lot to cover. So, yeah, so we'll just jump into that.
It's time for the news.
In Blizzard news, so before we get into anything game related, we're just going to talk about, first off, Blizzard have announced a new 12-month subscription mount that is going to be available for WoW subscribers. This is the Austral Auroch flying mount or skywriting mount. And I had to look it up, and Auroch is like some sort of a extinct cow, because I'm like, what is this thing? It looks like a weird fucked up horse or something. I don't know. But yeah, it's like a ethereal cow with wings. I mean, it's cool, I guess. I don't know. This is one of those things where I go, well, that's not for me. That's fine. And then there's 2, a mount and a pet that are to be announced at some points, which I guess is the Lunar New Year pets. So, yeah, it's you know, if you've got a 12-month subscription, you'll be getting that. If you don't have a 12-month subscription and you don't care about these mounts, there's no need to get one, because you're not saving any money off of the 6-month subscription. But if you like the mounts, then you might want to consider subbing for a year. I do 6 months because I never know. Like I'm okay with losing 6 months worth of playtime. But if I pay for a year subscription and then something happens and I can no longer play WoW for some reason, I don't want to lose a full year. That's a lot of money. My wife has a year subscription, so I don't know. I guess, yeah, that's how it goes. So, but anyway, yeah, check that out if you want to. If you want to get that mount, do the year subscription, and then all the other 6-month subscription mounts are still on there. So, yeah, check that out if that is something that is interesting to you. Right. Okay. Let's. I'm like, I don't know. It's a cow. It's a flying cow. Right. So before we do a full dive into Legion Remix, the one thing I wanted to talk about with the news was this whole Druid form fiasco. Now, if you weren't aware, or if you didn't hear it, what happened was when players first logged into Legion Remix, if you happened to roll a Druid and you logged in, you got the Mage Tower appearances for Bear and Cat. Now the bear form, the werebear, you can get the fell werebear, or you could get the fell werebear by doing the mage tower for Legion time walking. But the sparkle kitty, whatever it's called, cat form, there is no equivalent to it anywhere in the game. It's impossible to get. So people logged in and they were like, oh my gosh, I got this form that I've been wanting for years that I didn't get in Legion because I wasn't playing then, or I couldn't get it, or whatever the reason was. And so people were really excited. They thought, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Blizzard finally cares about druids. And of course, Blizzard came out the next day and was like, that was not on purpose. We didn't mean for that to happen. We're going to have to take those away, but we can't do it yet. So people lived with their illicit druid forms for a full week, knowing that they were going to be taken away, which they were on Tuesday during reset. And it really sparked the conversation about Mage Tower and the rewards, and you had to be there to get it rewards, or the things are only available for a limited time. There are certain things, achievement-based things, that I 100% feel should be, you had to have gotten it at the time. And in all honesty, I feel like, the PvP gladiator mounts, those are the biggest ones. A case could be made in either direction for raid, to say mythic raid, cutting edge. If you get cutting edge, you get the mount. If you don't get cutting edge when it's current, you never get that mount. You could make a case for that. You could also make a case for, and which is what they're doing now, is they say you can still have a chance to get it, but it's a low drop rate, which is fine. I mean, I got the Jailer Mythic mount during Collector's Bounty, which was cool. But, I didn't feel this sense of pride in having killed the Jailer and Mythic in Shadowlands. It was just kind of like hey, have fun. It didn't mean anything, right? So I don't know. I don't know how important it is one way or the other. There are certain things in game that you can no longer get, that were either limited time or have been removed from the game, that I wish Blizzard would bring back in some capacity. The Mage Tower is really divisive, because that was one of the selling points of it is, hey, do this now because they will never come back ever. And so I think they kind of painted themselves into a corner, right? If you say, hey, this is a unique opportunity to get these mounts, it's never going to come back or whatever. I mean, I don't know how you even phrase that to make it, to give people that FOMO and still give yourself enough leeway to bring it back at some point. I feel like they painted themselves into a corner and now they have to stick to their guns. Now, of course, Blizzard could come out tomorrow and say, hey, you know what? Screw it. You can get whatever you want. You can get the Mage Tower appearances. You can get the Gladiator mounts from past. All you have to do is some complicated quest line. But if you do it, you get the mounts. They could do that. And I would be fine with that, honestly. I don't feel like that's an issue. I feel like ultimately it's a game of who really cares, right? The people who got it at the time, a lot of them don't even care at this point. There are some who have the opinion that, hey, I earned this. This is mine. And I don't want my achievement taken away by somebody else getting it off of the trading post or from a simple quest line that they have to. Yeah, maybe it's a long quest line, but it is just a quest line. They didn't have to complete a challenge in order to get this. That's another one. Miss Pandaria challenge mode sets are not available. And when we did Miss Pandaria Remix, they were not available there. So it makes sense that the Mage Tower rewards were not available in Legion Remix. And I think that for now, I don't see Blizzard changing their stance on this, even though for the most part, people kind of really just... World of Warcraft is a game where we're all playing this game together. Not everybody's playing the game who was playing it back in Legion. A lot of people who played in Legion have quit since then. For whatever reason, not just because they didn't like the game, but some people move on in life. Some people change their circumstances. They no longer have time, or maybe they didn't like the game. Maybe they quit because of Shadowlands, or maybe COVID changed the way that they play video games. It doesn't matter. A lot of the people who earned these appearances are not in the game, which means that there are even fewer people who have them around, out and about. So does that mean that Blizzard should make them available to more people? I don't know. I still am of the opinion that if you say something's going to be limited time, it's limited time. If you change your stance on it and you bring one thing back, it becomes a slippery slope to, we might as well just bring back the gladiator mounts. So while I think it would be cool to get the druid forms on my druids, I don't really care. Ultimately, I don't really care. It's not important to me. I don't use those forms anyway. I usually, honestly, I just use the generic bear form, and I don't really play feral. So for me, it's not a big deal. But for a lot of people, it's a huge deal. And it's very important to them that they have these abilities or these appearances, or at least something similar. If you give them a recolor, fine. Or you give them, I don't even know. I was listening to the Bench podcast, and Growl had a take where he said, you can give people things, but make sure that there's some sort of a note that says they didn't earn this originally. And I thought, that's the stupidest thing. Come on. That we don't need to differentiate and divide the community up. If you want to do that, you give them whatever they want, make it a different appearance. That way people can just see it and know. There's no confusion, right? You don't have to check on people. Did you get this back in Legion? I don't know that you did. I'm going to check your achievements and see. But the long and the short of it is, Blizzard screwed up. They gave people hope, and then they took it away, and that looks bad. And so, is this really a big deal? No, it's not a big deal, but it feels bad, and it's a bad step out of the gate for Blizzard in this sort of thing. It's supposed to be for fun, and then all these players start off with fun and then lose that fun. And especially because they had them for a full week before they were taken away. That stinks, because you get used to it at that point. So anyway, yeah, I don't think that it really matters, but yeah, it is what it is. All right, let's move on, because I could go on that for a while. And you know, everybody's got their take on, oh, it should be this or it should be that. At the end of the day, it's just pixels, people. It's just pixels. And if we give them to everybody, or we only give them to the people who were there at the time, at the end of the day, it's just pixels. So it's not a big deal. All right, let's talk about patch 11.2.7. So Blizzard has given us the PTR for patch 11.2.7, along with the PTR patch notes. So the patch is called The Warning, which is an interesting title for this patch. This is basically going to be the prelude campaign to Midnight, the lead up. So we're going to get Erator, probably Verisa, maybe even Sylvanas, who are going to jump into the story, and we're going to get that lead up. So hopefully it's good, because everything so far about Midnight looks good, but we don't really know what the story is going to be. And that's where I'm nervous, because Blizzard could really screw this up if they don't nail the story just right. So I'm a little nervous, but I feel like they've earned a little bit better, and they've gotten better since, you know, the old days. Even Dragonflight, people criticized the writing in Dragonflight, and I get it, but they had to quickly rewrite the end of Dragonflight to fit the War Within and the World Soul Saga after Chris Metzen showed up, because he showed up 8 months in the development of the War Within and said, let's rewrite this. And so they had to adjust the story in Dragonflight to make sure that it worked for the War Within. So anyway, so we're going to get that. The housing stress tests. So we were supposed to get a housing stress test starting on Tuesday, where everybody could access player housing, and they were going to try and get everybody on the system at once so that they could evaluate how well the housing servers handled such a large load of players. And they delayed it due to technical issues, which to me means that they weren't ready for that load of players. So, yeah, still to come when we are going to be able to test out player housing. But when it comes, if you log onto the PTR, you don't have to have Midnight Alpha. You don't have to have anything. All you have to do is log onto the PTR, and you'll be able to test out player housing at its bare basic settings, which, I mean, you can at least start building your house. So, or at least, you know, get an idea of what you want to do for your house. So that's kind of cool. And then when patch 11.2.7 launches on December 2nd, we will get player housing. It's going to be there. At least we're assuming it's going to be there, unless something critical was broken, and that's why the stress test was delayed. But regardless, that's the plan right now, is that we're going to get player housing, and we're going to have a stress test sometime, probably this week, I would assume. or maybe this weekend when people are off work, we'll have a stress test, and we'll see how that goes. So more to come on that. If there's anything that comes out, like if the stress test is going to happen before the next episode, I will post something in the Discord, which you can get to the Azeroth United Discord by going to AzerothUnitedPod.com. If you are on there, I'll post something about it, and maybe we can I don't know if we'll create a neighborhood or whatever, but I will definitely be on there playing around with it on the PTR. So if you're excited about player housing, I would definitely suggest getting on there too. All right. Also coming in patch 11.2.7 is a new lore walking for the elves. And so we're specifically talking about the high elves, blood elves, void elves, that whole category of elves, not the night elves, not the nightborn, just the high elves who are now blood elves and void elves. And this is exactly what I was hoping from lore walking. I thought when lore walking was released, I was like, okay, this is great, because now when there's a story beat that people might not be aware of, why are the blood elves called the blood elves? Maybe you played Warcraft 2 back in the day, and then you played World of Warcraft in Burning Crusade, and you're like, how come the elves are on the Horde when they used to be on the Alliance? Well, this, I'm assuming, will explain why. So, we're going to get the story of the blood elves, how that all came about, how the void elves splintered off from them. I'm assuming we'll learn why they switched from high elves to blood elves, which occurred during the scourging of Quel'Thalas. But anyway, so that's pretty cool. I'm definitely looking forward to that one. I'm not going to do it on the PTR because I don't really want to do the lore walking twice. I'm happy to do it once and see it and go, cool. I don't want to do it twice because honestly, the lore walking is slower than normal questing, because you're kind of in this weird, I don't know. But I'd like to do it once and just see it. So I'll wait and do that on live service in December, but that is coming. And that means that we're going to get lore walking of whatever in the future. So if you're curious about why is it that we're doing whatever, we're going to have some good Titan lore walking coming up. I guarantee you that. Maybe we'll even get some details on like Oldemont and Ulduar and Uldum and all of the different Titan facilities all around the world. That'll be really cool. So hopefully that comes in towards the end of midnight before we get the last Titan, before the Titans show back up. So, all right. Other news, the Brawlers Guild is returning, so you'll be able to get invitations to the Brawlers Guild. Everybody in Dornogal will get an invitation. And then you'll be able to go to the Brawlers Guild. I don't know if there's new rewards. Not really sure. But it's something that you can go do. If you've never done the Brawlers Guild before, it's basically like an illegal fight club that you can go to and fight different people or fight different NPCs, and you get rewards for it. And so it's kind of a take on Fight Club. But also, I think at some point Ian Hazacostas said that it is non-canon, like it's just a fun thing that happens. It's not like, oh, there's an actual in canon fight club in Stormwind and Orgrimmar. No. This is just something fun that you can go do. But if you do enjoy some PvP and maybe some dueling, this will be a really cool thing to go do. So check out the Brawlers Guild when it returns in patch 11.2.7. Quick note on horrific visions. So you can still do the horrific visions, but right now it's limited to 1 week it's Orgrimmar, then the next week it's Stormwind, and then the next week it's back to Orgrimmar, and then next week back to Stormwind. You will now be able to choose whichever one you want to do. You can do either or. And it's not limited on a weekly rotation, which is great because sometimes people get stuck where they're like, oh, I didn't finish everything I needed in Orgrimmar, and now it's next week and it's Stormwind and I can't do the thing that I need to do, and so I'm irritated. So this would be great for those people who are trying to finish up those achievements or whatever it is that you're trying to get out of the horrific visions. I know there's a mount and some transmog and different things that you can get. So I did it a few times and I was like, yep, I'm done with this. This is not for me. I mean, it's fine. I don't mind stuff like that. And I'm actually that was one of the features that I was looking at all of the things that have been added to the game since the Burning Crusade. And that's one of the ones I was like, oh, that's interesting. But anyway, all right. The final thing for patch 11.2.7, and this is a big category, which is user interface and accessibility. So, Blizzard is going to great lengths to make the game more accessible to people without add-ons, which is great because they're taking away combat add-ons in Midnight. So they have to do this and they have to get it right. And there was actually an interview that I saw where Ian Hazzikostas admitted that their original plan was to just take away parts of add-ons. We'll just limit their functionality so that we can have this be a slow removal of add-ons and slow, like a soft. And I mentioned this last week in the Add-on Apocalypse episode. And they realized very quickly that they couldn't do that. That was not feasible. That was not a good way to do this. And they had to go all in and just remove everything, which is exactly what I just was saying, is that you can't do a soft rollout. It's just not going to work. So does it stink for add-on developers and people who have been doing add-ons and people who are enjoying add-ons? Yeah, it does. It sucks. But, this is the growing pains that we have to go through. And at the end of the day, I think we're going to be better off without dealing with add-ons, without having to, I got to update my add-on. Imagine raid night without having to update all your fucking add-ons. Come on. How great is that going to be? So anyway, there's a few things that they're changing for add-ons. Obviously we're getting some new add-on availability in Midnight for like the boss mods and all of that stuff. We're not getting any of those features in 11.2.7. We are getting some changes to the single button assistant, which is going to be you can press and hold and it'll just cycle through it. So that's really cool, because that was something that I thought would be really fun in the beginning, is if you could just push a button and then move around and do stuff. No, you couldn't do that. So that'll be really cool. Along with that, they're changing the default behavior of A and D. So right now, if you keep your fingers on WASD on your keyboard, and look at your keyboard right now, or if you're not at your computer, when you get to your computer, look at your keyboard, WASD, that's the standard for every game that I've ever played. WASD. In WoW, WASD, so W goes forward, A turns your character to the left, D turns your character to the right, and S backs your character up. If you want to strafe, you have to press Q and E. So Blizzard is changing this. They're changing the default behavior from A and D being turning to A and D being strafing, just like every other game out there, which will be weird, because when I go from playing WoW to playing a shooter, I get thrown off. I'm constantly pressing Q and E because I'm trying to strafe and I can't figure out why. And then I have to look and go, oh no, it's A and D instead of Q and E. They're changing the default. They're not forcing you to keep it that way. You can always change it back if you want, but they're changing the default. And so going forward, it's going to be easier for people who are used to playing games like shooters and different things like that, action games, to play WoW, because the keyboard controls are going to be the same. So that's really good. Another feature they're adding in, guards at capital cities now offer the location of training dummies as a point of interest. So you can say, hey, where the fuck are the training dummies? Because I can't find them. So that's really cool. All right. So the catch-up experience. So what they're going to do is they're going to, I don't know if it's going to be the full catch-up experience or if it's just a soft rollout of the catch-up experience. But in Midnight, we're going to get a full leveling experience for new players and returning players so that they can be caught up with the story and kind of catch up to where things are. So what they're going to do for players who haven't logged on for 60 days, on the character select screen, they can have the option to log in to the catch-up experience. So rather than just logging onto your character, it'll log you directly into the catch-up experience. So if you've probably seen this already, where if you have an old character that you haven't played for a long time, you go and you look and, it's a gear upgrade is available. So you switch over to that server, or if they're already on your server, you choose which specialization you want to play, and then that character, and then you can choose to keep your quests or clear your quest log. And then when you log in, everything that was in your bags, all your gear, it all gets mailed back to you, and then you get a full new set of gear, a full new set of bags, empty bags, to basically start your adventure. And if you and I think it'll take you back to your capital city, so Stormrand or Orgrimmar, so you can kick off there. It's really cool. It's a great way to get some of your alts who maybe had gear from a older expansion. Like I had a character who I leveled up in Shadowlands. Well, their gear is old. It's ancient, and so I had played them at one point and it was like, well, my gear all stinks. I have to get all new gear. And so I logged out and I was like, whatever. So I came back a few months later and I had a gear upgrade available. So I did the gear upgrade. Now all my gear is appropriate for my level. And so I was able to actually do stuff. So it's a cool way to do it. This is going to enhance that by giving you an actual experience. It says there's a new tutorials tab that's been added to the adventure guide for players to automatically start catch-up experience at any time. So if it's something that you're just like, I'm lost, I don't know what to do, I'm wandering around Dornogal and I'm so confused, here's your, or even better, if you're wandering around Valdrakken because you're level 63 and you haven't played since 2022, this is a good way to get back into it. So there you go, the catch-up experience. And then along that line, various gameplay tutorials have been added or updated. Item comparison is now on by default and has had its UI improved with help with visual clarity. So the item comparison, if you have one item equipped and then you look at a different item, it'll show you the item you're looking at and whatever you have equipped in that slot. That's going to be on by default. You have to go turn it on in the interface right now. I think you have to hold shift, or at least you used to have to hold shift. Mine just pops up automatically. So that's cool. Again, they're just adding all these little quality of life things to make the experience better for people, and honestly better for new players, because new players, they don't know these things. They have to figure them out. And so to help them along a little bit, I think is a good thing. It's good for WoW in general. And then finally updated the art for the following hand curses: grabbing, pointing, holding, and open. Just some HD art, I guess, for the hand cursors. So there you go. That's what's coming in patch 11.2.7. Again, the patch launch is slated for December 2nd, although Blizzard has not officially stated this is when the patch will launch. They have stated housing will launch on December 2nd. And we know that housing is supposed to be available with patch 11.2.7. So we're putting 2 and 2 together here and coming up with 4. But Blizzard could still change their mind, which is why they haven't done an official announcement. Here's when the patch is going to be here. So expect it December 2nd, but don't be surprised if it moves to December 9th or something like that. It should be fine. All right. In other news, before we jump in Legion Remix, in Midnight. So there was 2 things that I wanted to point out that have been updated in the Midnight Alpha. First of all, we are in phase 2. I think I mentioned that last week, but we're in phase 2. We have not hit phase 3 yet, so I guess we're taking a little bit longer in phase 2. One, they updated the portal rooms. Okay, so if you whether you're Alliance or Horde, if you go into Orgrimmar or you go into Stormwind, the portals are all over the place, and you gotta go. If you're in Orgrimmar, you gotta go to the lower level to go to the other set of portals, and if you're in Stormwind, you gotta go into the back room where the portal to Dornogal is, and Belemeth. They've changed everything around, and I don't like it. So Borealis in Stormwind and so first of all, Borealis and Stormwind has been moved to the back room. So that's where Dornogal is currently. And then so has, oh God, now I don't have the list in front of me. Anyway, they've moved a bunch of stuff around. The point is they've moved a bunch of stuff around. The current or the most recent expansions, Warlords of Draenor, Legion, and Battle for Azeroth have all been moved to the back room in Stormwind. In Orgrimmar, I think they all moved to the lower level. But the point is they're doing all this shuffling around because they're adding a portal for Silvermoon, and they're adding a portal to player housing in the main portal area. So this is a bigger deal for the Alliance than it is for the Horde, I think, because it's easier for the Horde to get from one section to the other. For the Alliance, you got to go all the way to the back, and it's out of the way. It's a hassle. I don't know why they did it like that. Anyway, so in case you were wondering, Silvermoon portal will be in the portal room, and so will player housing. So there you go. The other thing that we're getting, and this is kind of big, but it's all been data mined, so we don't have anything official on this yet. But the upgrade system we know it's changing. We just didn't know exactly how that was going to work. We have a better idea now, although, like I said, we don't have anything concrete and official yet. So what we are aware of is all of the upgrade tracks. So it's going to go Adventurer through Myth. So each of the upgrade tracks is going to have 6 upgrades available. So when you get a piece of gear, if it's 1 out of 6, Yeah, then you can upgrade it 5 times. Each of the upgrade levels is going to have its own crest currency. So if you get to Adventurer 4 out of 6, it's not like you're going to have to switch to the Veteran crest in order to upgrade to 5 out of 6 and 6 out of... It's Adventurer all the way. So feel free to upgrade your gear all the way to the max. Right now, it's really weird in the War Within because for Hero Track in particular, because every upgrade track has 4 levels that are one crest and then 4 levels that are a different crest. And this is not a problem for any upgrade track except for Hero Track, because in Hero Track you get the 2 additional levels. Although now that we're in Turbo Boost, you get 4 additional levels. Regardless, you have to spend gilded crests on them, and the gilded crests are the only thing that you can use to upgrade your Myth Track gear. So if you're expecting to get Myth Track gear, it makes no sense to upgrade your Hero Track gear with your gilded crest. Now, if you're like me and you're doing delves and you're like, I'm never going to see a piece of Myth Track gear, spend all your gilded crests. It's fine. But if you're doing Mythic Plus, if you're doing any Mythic rating, maybe even just the first few bosses, if you're going to get Myth Track gear, you have to save those crests for your gear. And it's a pain. So now what they're changing is Hero Track gear will use Hero crests. Myth Track gear will use Myth crests, and so on. And so even though there's still some overlap in the item levels, the upgrade tracks themselves will be distinct and have their own specific currency. No more Valor Stones, Champion crests, upgrade Champion Track gear, and that's it. So if you want to upgrade your champion piece of gear, you got to go get champion crests. That's it. That's the whole system. It's completely simplified. I feel like it makes the system so much better. And each one of these upgrade tracks only has 6 tracks, which makes more sense that way, because you don't want to, it's going to feel weird to have your adventurer track gear go up to a certain level, and then you're going to be like, well, I wish I had veteran track gear, right? It's like, it's always adding on. But since it's only going to 6, it's not like you're spending all of this extra time and all this extra effort upgrading a piece of gear that you're going to want to replace, right? You're not even spending crests that you could use on anything else. The only thing you can spend adventurer crests on is adventurer track. Only thing you can spend veteran crests on is veteran track. That's it. The whole system, it makes perfect sense now. And each upgrade is only going to take 10 crests. So when you get crests, you'll need 50 to go. If the 1 out of 6, you'll need 50 crests to go all the way to 6 out of 6. That's really simple. I don't know how they could make this any better. They removed the Valor Stones. They simplified the crests. They've unified the crests and the tracks together. I mean, this is like Blizzard actually learning from their mistakes. This is fantastic. I love it. So we'll see how it goes. And again, like I said, this has all just been data mined. So we don't know the specifics of, hey, here's how everything works. But this is what we've seen so far. So that's good stuff. And I'm really hopeful for the future. So, all right, let's talk about what's going on this week in World of Warcraft. All right, so the bonus event this week is the Warlords of Draenor Time Walking. So maybe if you're not really loving Legion and you really want to play Warlords of Draenor, this is a great week for you. You can get the Sign of Iron buff. Warlords of Draenor reputation gains from combat and quests increased by 50%. Pick up the quest A Savage Path Through Time for Marcus of Thrun and Dornogal to defeat 5 time walking dungeons, and you'll be rewarded with a champion track raid item for Mana Forge Omega. So if you've got an alt, or maybe you haven't been gearing up your main and you want a piece of gear, this is a great thing to do. And then the dungeon pool for Warlords of Draenor is Auchindoun, the Bloodmaw Slag Mines, the Everbloom, Grimrail Depot, Shadowmoon Burial Grounds, and Skyreach. So yeah, check out the Warlords of Draenor Time Walking if that's something that you're into. I'm sure there are a lot of people who just don't want to play Remix because there's just no like, you get to keep the character, but you don't get to keep any of the power that you generate. And so I think for a lot of people that's frustrating. I get it. It's fine. So if you want to do Warlords of Draenor Time Walking, that's fine. The other event for this week is Comp Stomp, the PvP Brawl. Jump into a Wrathy Basin for a head-to-head battle against AI opponents in this classic battle. And when you zone in, you'll get the quest Something Different to win a PvP Brawl, and you're rewarded with Conquest, Honor, and Marks of Honor. Just a reminder that Comp Stomp, the PvP Brawl mode, will be coming to Midnight as a new PvP battle type. So you'll be able to do Calm Stomp in various battlegrounds against AI opponents, and I think it's gonna be really cool. It'll probably just be a really cool way to get some quick honor and nothing else. But if you just feel like doing the battlegrounds, but you don't feel like actually fighting against jackass PvP players, this is a great way to do it. So yeah, Comp Stomp. And Comp Stomp is always fun because the AI opponents are smart, but they're not that smart. So it's like, fighting against your little brother, in Street Fighter. You're going to win, but it's not like he's a cookie. He puts up a challenge, but you're going to win. So I'm just saying. All right. And then as far as holidays go, we've got starting on October 18th, which is, I believe, this Saturday, is Hallow's End. Hallow's End celebrates the break of the Forsaken from the Scourge. Fun and mischief reign as the innkeepers of Azeroth give treats and tricks to whomever asks. So if you really want to do the Headless Horseman mount grind, you can. There were some data mines recolors of the Headless Horseman mount and armor set that's currently on the trading post. We don't know if those are going to be available for Hallow's End. I guess we'll see on Saturday. So yeah, start getting ready to do your Headless Horseman grind. I have the mount on one account, but I don't have it on the other, and quite honestly, I don't care. So yeah, I'm just like, whatever, it's fine. I'll probably do it a couple times, but I'm not gonna grind it every single day trying to get my Headless Horseman's mount. It's not that big of a deal for me. So October 18th, and it's gonna run through November 1st. I think it ends at November 1st on a reset, so it's not like you'll get the full November 1st, I think, because then it switches over to the Day of the Dead holiday at the end of the month. So yeah, so check out Hallow's End, run around, get your candy. There's maps on Wowhead where it shows you every innkeeper that gives you candy, or however that works, and I guess there's an achievement that you can go through and get all of them. It's fun. It's fun, and this is one of the holidays that I enjoy. And I've mentioned before that Halloween is my favorite IRL holiday. And if you're watching the video, you can see I've got all my Halloween decorations up. Yeah, I mean, I love Halloween, so this is a fun one for me. It's kind of fun. The Headless Horseman's an interesting holiday character. Some of them are dumb. It's not like the Frost Lord for the summer festival. Who cares? But the Headless Horseman's fun because he taunts you, and the fight is a little bit more complex. And it's even better now that they've enhanced it and made it so that you personally can gain more if you choose to try on the harder challenges and whatnot. So it makes it more interesting. Anyway, yeah, Hallow's End will run through November 1st, starting on October 18th. So make sure you check that out and kill the Headless Horseman, get all your candy and your masks and whatever else you want to do, or just run around Legion Remix. It's up to you. All right, speaking of Legion Remix, let's move on to our main topic of the week.
It's time for the main topic of the week.
All right, so I wasn't sure how to approach this because for me, this is the type of thing that's a lot more fun to play than it is to talk about. I've watched a bunch of videos on Legion Remix, and they all have the same idea, which is, yeah, it's fine to talk about it, but it's a lot more fun to actually play it. So, I mean, I don't know. Legion Remix is cool, and I'm having a good time. But there's been a few things about it that have not worked out, maybe the way that they intended, the way that Blizzard intended, and that's fine. That happens. But I'd say overall it's been a success. All right, that's it. That's just no. What I wanted to do is I wanted to kind of think through everything that's ever been added to WoW. And I don't mean that in terms of like every piece of gear and all that. I'm talking about there have been major systems added to World of Warcraft throughout its history. And some of them were things that it was an addition to an existing system, or you had a completely new system that was added to the game, and there's different things that have been added to the game since its release. So when WoW released, it came with very specific things: quests, dungeons, raids, professions, all the things that we know and love. The core of World of Warcraft, we're all familiar with it. But what happened with the Burning Crusade is we started getting things changed and added and expanded. And so I want to go through that list, and this is not an exhaustive list. This is just what I came up with of the things that were added to the game throughout the years, prior to something like Legion Remix or Miss Pandaria Remix and now Legion Remix, and what it really signifies for the future of World of Warcraft. Because honestly, there are certain things in WoW that have been added in the past that they could have done a remix type thing with, and now that we have this, I think it changes the way that Blizzard is going to approach some of these things. So let's go through it. All right, let's start off with the fun stuff. All right, in the Burning Crusade. So Burning Crusade, the first expansion for World of Warcraft. And in a lot of ways, Burning Crusade was WoW 2.0. It took the original game and it expanded some of the things, made the gearing a little bit better. It made the quests flowed a little bit better. Things made more sense. They streamlined the rating so that it was 25 player or 10 player instead of having to get 40 people together, which was a pain. So all in all, Burning Crusade did a lot for World of Warcraft. There were three things that they added into Burning Crusade that I would consider to be system changes that were special and made a huge impact on the game long term. So the first off, of course, like I just mentioned, raid encounter or raid dungeon sizes. So there was a size limit. In the original World of Warcraft, a raid could only be 40 people. And so when Blizzard created raid instances, naturally they were built to accommodate 40 people. Blizzard changed that with Zul'Gurub when they said, okay, this one can only be 20. And then again with the Ruins of Ahn'Qiraj, this one can only be 20. But 40 was kind of the default for raids. And so when Burning Crusade launched, Blizzard said, you know what, 40 is too many. We're going to switch this to 25 and 10. And they did. And they switched it to 25 and 10. And I feel like it was mostly successful. 10-player raiding was actually a lot of fun. Karazhan was a great time. Zul'Aman I really loved. Some of the 25-player raids were fun, but it was hard to balance it out because if you had a 10-player raid like Karazhan and then a 25-player raid like Gruul's Lair, how are you as a guild supposed to rectify this issue where you have 25 people who want to raid, and then you say, okay, everyone, let's do Gruul's Lair. 25 people show up. Great. Now let's go do Karazhan. Wait a minute. There's a problem here. And so it created an issue where people felt left out because it was a weird numbering. If it had been 20 and 10, that might have been better. I don't know. Regardless, that was one of the first big changes that they made to the existing system of raids. Same thing with dungeons. But in this case, we didn't change the number of players, we changed the difficulty. So you have a normal dungeon and then you had a heroic dungeon. And the heroic dungeon in the Burning Crusade were hard, especially because we still didn't really know how to play back then. There was still a lot of learning that needed to be done. So by the time Classic came around in the Burning Crusade Classic, heroics were a lot easier. But it was still a challenge, and it was still something that you had to actually think to get through, and had to do crowd control and things like that. So that was a big deal. And then the third thing that was added, and this wasn't added until patch 2.1, which was daily quests. Prior to that, you had repeatable quests, but it was never daily quests where it just reset on the day. This was actually a really big deal, and this was, of course, the precursor to World Quest, which we'll get to later. But yeah, daily quests introduced Burning Crusade in patch 2.1, which coincidentally was the Black Temple patch. So in case you're wondering when that was. In Wrath of the Lich King, we had a few things that were added to the game. So the first one is the barbershop. Now, I know it's a little silly, but think about it. You couldn't change your character's appearance at all in any way except for changing your armor. But if you changed your armor, that also changed your stats. So the barbershop was added in as something that could allow you to do that and give you some personalization, some customization. It's not a impactful system that was added to the game, but it is something that was introduced and it has been iterated on since then, but it's a permanent part of the game now. You can even change your gender in the barbershop now. So I think that's probably one of the more significant systems that was added to the game, even though it seems like, oh, it's just the barbershop. It's a big deal. Glyphs were added in Wrath of the Lich King in the beginning also. Now glyphs Blizzard has slowly whittled away at the usefulness of glyphs until this point. They're hardly worth even mentioning. You build a new character or you start a new alt, the last thing you're thinking of is glyphs. Well, what glyphs should I get? Basically the only thing that you care about for that is like, oh, I'm going to play a balanced druid and I don't want to look like a boom chicken. All right, so you get the glyph. Or I'm going to play a shadow priest. I'm too shadowy. All right, so you get the glyph. Whatever. But for the most part, glyphs have slowly decreased in relevance, but they're still in the game. In patch 3.1, Blizzard introduced hard mode raids. So that was a raid encounter where you could make it more difficult by doing things a certain way. And as a result, you would get additional loot, which was really cool. This was Ulduar, and I think this was one of the best ideas that they had, because switching things to heroic, we're just going to blanket make the whole thing harder. I liked the hard modes in Ulduar because it required you to think and ask yourself that question, like, do we do this boss on hard mode or do we do it on regular? If it was Memoron, maybe you're doing it on regular. But regardless, hard mode raids were something that was introduced in 3.1. In 3.2, we just had heroic raids. And so originally, the normal raid and the heroic raid had two different titles, but eventually they just started calling it normal and heroic, because it was the Trial of the Crusader and then Trial of the Grand Crusader was the heroic version. They gave up on that and they just started calling it normal and heroic, whatever. And then in patch 3.3, we got the Dungeon Finder, which, again, this is something that's iterating on an existing system in the game. You have your group finder, you're looking for group. It was like looking for group and then looking for more if you already had a group. Blizzard streamlined the whole thing and gave you the ability to actually teleport to the dungeon with the Dungeon Finder in patch 3.3, which was the Ashkan Citadel patch. So that was honestly the point where I feel like WoW changed at that point, because it was no longer a game where you had to go and make friends and meet people and do stuff. It was a game where you could just sit in Dalaran and just spam dungeons, which I did. I did do that. I leveled my Warlock that way because I didn't feel like playing him. So, because I hate Warlocks. And if you play a Warlock, I don't mean to offend. I don't like Warlocks. I don't like playing Warlocks. I don't mind Warlocks as people. I just don't like to play a Warlock. So, all right, moving on. We have Cataclysm. In Cataclysm, we had introduced Reforging. Now, this is the first system that on this list that didn't either iterate into something different or is still in the game. Reforging went away. So it was introduced in Cataclysm, and it went away at the end of Pandaria, or at the beginning of Warlords of Draenor with the pre-patch. Reforging, for those of you who don't remember, if you didn't do Classic, you could basically take your gear and you could reforge some of your stats to a different stat if you wanted to. So let's say you had your stats were crit and mastery, and you like haste. Well, you could reforge some of your mastery into haste. And so now your gear has crit, mastery, and haste. It was an okay system. I actually liked Reforging, but it became solved and people just kind of stacked as much of one stat as they wanted, and it didn't really become a big deal. It wasn't really relevant. It was just an extra step that you had to do. So Blizzard eventually just took it out of the game. They were like, this is pointless. Cataclysm also saw our first talent tree revamp. So this is when we reduced our talent trees down and you had to choose a specific specialization. I'm going to be a Retribution Paladin. I'm going to be a Restoration Druid. You had to choose that, and then you could pick out your talents from there. And you only got talents every other level. It was weird. The Cataclysm talent trees were my least favorite talent trees in the game. But it started that thought process of, okay, I've got to choose my specialization. I've got to choose abilities that are specific to that. I feel like if they had kept that style of talent trees, they could have done a lot with it. Cataclysm also introduced the Raid Finder in patch 4.3, which was the Dragon Soul raid. So that was, again, it's kind of the beginning of the end for World of Warcraft. Now we've got LFR. Whether you like it or not, it's part of the game. So, which is why it was so weird that Blizzard chose not to include it in Miss Pandaria Classic. But anyway, and then finally we have Transmog, which was introduced in Cataclysm 4.3 as well. This is probably one of the biggest changes that Blizzard has ever made to the game, and not big in terms of scale, but big in terms of importance. This is so important to so many people. We just had the Collector's Bounty event, which, yes, people were farming mounts, but the transmog was like the key thing. We're doing Legion Remix right now, and yes, people want the mounts, but the transmog is huge. This is a big deal for a lot of people. And I know some people, you see them out there, you get into a group or a raid or whatever with people, and you see this person and they're wearing the most mismatched, ridiculous gear ever, and you think, don't you know that transmog exists? They do, they just don't care. They just really don't. They do not care because all they care about is the numbers on the screen, and that's fine. But for me and a lot of people, transmog is the true end game of WoW. All right, next up we have Mists of Pandaria. We had challenge mode that was introduced in patch 5.0.4, which is the pre-patch or the launch patch for Mists of Pandaria. Challenge mode actually went away at the end of Legion. I forgot that challenge mode still existed in Warlords of Draenor. I had to look this up. Challenge mode was, of course, eventually replaced by Mythic Plus, but this was a game mode where you could run a dungeon and you just had to run it as fast as possible. There was no mob counter, there was no affixes. It was just go in there, do it as fast as you can on increased difficulty, and you were able to earn some really cool gear as a result of that. And this goes back to the discussion earlier about the Druid forms from the Mage Tower, but you can no longer get these sets from Mists of Pandaria. They are gone. You cannot get them. And challenge mode is now gone from the game. So that's a thing. I think challenge mode, the biggest issue is that people just found the quickest way, which is where we came up with this whole skip culture, where in Mythic Plus now, when you're trying to get there as fast as you can, and so people come up with all these different ways you can skip. Well, if you jump off of the edge here, and then you slow fall down, and then you jump on this little ledge, and you go through this area, and then you climb across the wall, and then you jump down, you can get to the last boss. Well, okay, that's great, but it's like, this isn't a jumping game. This is we're supposed to go fight stuff. Anyway, also in that patch, or in the beginning of Mists of Pandaria, we had pet battles, which were introduced, and pet battles have been a mainstay of World of Warcraft since then. Even though a lot of people don't really interact with the system, it's still there, and Blizzard is making changes to it in Midnight. So there you go. Scenarios were introduced in Mists of Pandaria, and scenarios. So this was a one expansion thing where you actually had scenarios which were like mini dungeons. Think like a quest that you had to go do. It was 3 people, and you would go do it, and you would get a reward at the end, and you could join a queue to just jump into a scenario. Now, scenarios didn't go away, they just changed. And so now when you get a scenario, it's part of a quest line, and you'll just get a random scenario that starts off because you're being isolated and you have to clear certain objectives. And so the scenario can put different rules in place that a quest maybe can't quite do. So, and a scenario puts you into a different instance than your quest in the open world. So scenarios were really big in Legion for all the artifact weapons. Every single one of them had a scenario in it. And then finally the talent revamp. Again, we had talent trees change. This time you choose your specialization, but instead of choosing a talent tree, you had actual talent bars, and you would get a different bar every 15 levels. So 15, 30, 45, 60. And each bar would allow you to choose one of 3 talents. And this system was very divisive over the years, but it did eventually change again in at the end of Shadowlands, the beginning of Dragonflight, where we got the new Dragonflight style talent trees. And then the Brawlers Guild was introduced in patch 5.1. Now, we just talked about the Brawlers Guild coming back. This has been a back and forth. It was here. Actually, the Brawlers Guild went silent after Battle for Azeroth. It didn't go away. It just went silent, and I don't really think there was anything going on there. But now it's back, and it's better than ever. So Brawlers Guild, big deal. And then in Mists of Pandaria, finally in patch 5.4, we had Flex Raids. Now, Flex Raids is really interesting because it started off, we had, and this was for the Siege of Orgrimmar patch. So we had Raid Finder difficulty, and then we had Flex difficulty, and then we had Normal, and then we had Heroic. That was how Siege of Orgrimmar was set up. In Warlords of Draenor, they changed it. So now Flex became Normal, Normal became Heroic, and Heroic became Mythic, which is why we call Siege of Orgrimmar the first Mythic raid, even though it wasn't. It was Heroic. So retroactive, this is a retcon, calling Siege of Orgrimmar the first Mythic raid. It's Mythic now because of this switch, but originally it was Heroic. All right, moving on. Speaking of Warlords of Draenor, we had the Garrison, of course. Everybody knows the Garrison. It was one of the most divisive things that was ever put in the game. Was it a good system? I think it was a good attempt. I think the Blizzard kind of screwed themselves over by making everything available in the Garrison, including your quests, where you get quests, and not having a viable faction or a viable capital. Even if, let's say, we had a neutral capital and we had garrisons, that would have been fine. But instead we had Ashran, which was the weirdest thing. It was bizarre. Anyway, the Garrison, divisive though it may be, it was a big deal. It was a one expansion system. It still exists and you can still go there. And if you create a new character, you can go make your Garrison. Just do the Warlords of Draenor starting quest line, and at the end of it, you'll get your Garrison, either in Frostfire Ridge or Shadow Moon Valley or wherever it is. So there you go, Garrisons. Mission table also was introduced in Warlords of Draenor. Now, the mission table was really interesting because this one lasted through 4 expansions. And each iteration was slightly different. I liked the Warlords of Draenor the best, although the Legion one was really good. The Battle for Azeroth one was okay. I didn't love it. And the Shadowlands one was absolutely terrible. It was dreadful. So I'm glad they got rid of it. But part of me, and I was talking about this after I did the episode a few episodes ago with Nithia, where we were talking about Legion Remix. She actually said that she misses having mission tables, and I was like, you know what, I think I agree, because while it was a problem that it was like, well, you just got to stand here and play mini games with mission tables, it gave you something to do where you could say, oh, I gotta go to work in 10 minutes, but let me just log on and check my missions real quick. That was great. You could go do that. There's nothing in the game like that now where you could, I'm just gonna log in real quick and do this. No, there's nothing. You could go do a world quest, I guess, but I don't know. I do miss the mission tables. So again, Mythic Raids became a thing in the beginning of Warlords of Draenor, so we talked about that already. And then the profession catch-up. So they added in, so this is the first real change to professions, where they added in a catch-up mechanism in your Garrison where you could level your professions all the way to, I think it was like 600. And when you did that, you basically, if you started a new character, it would be very difficult to level your professions up all the way. So they gave you catch up. They recognized that, okay, this is a little big. And then in patch 6.2, we got Mythic Dungeons, which was a really big deal. And obviously we still have Mythic Dungeons around nowadays. And finally in patch 6.2, we got time walking. That was the first time walking, which I didn't even realize it was that far back. But yeah, time walking in Warlords of Draenor, patch 6.2. I mean, we got time walking Warlords of Draenor this week. So how weird is that? All right, let's move on to Legion. Legion, of course, we got the artifact weapon, which was a borrowed power system. And you hear a lot about borrowed power. And this was where it came from, because we've had borrowed power since the beginning of WoW. Tier sets are borrowed power. But the artifact weapon was a special expansion long borrowed power system that we put a lot of time and a lot of energy into. You know, I was just talking about the mission tables being something you could go do. You could just jump on and go grind some artifact power real quick and then go to work. That was the thing you could do also. If you wanted to log into WoW so you could talk to your friends or, you know, say hi to your guild, but you didn't really feel like doing anything, that was a great way to do it, is log on, go get your artifact power. You're all good. Class order halls, another one that was expansion specific to Legion. They're still there. You could still go do the quests, but we haven't had class order halls after that. They stay in Legion. They live there. Legion also saw the beginning of the Mythic Plus system, which replaced the challenge mode. Divisive though it may be, this is a mainstay of World of Warcraft. It's now one of the endgame pillars of WoW, Mythic Plus. So yeah, love it or hate it, it's here forever. And it may not be in this form that it's currently in. It certainly is not in the same form that it was back in Legion, but we are definitely... It was a great system that was added to the game, and Blizzard really... I feel like Blizzard really just hit the nail on the head with this one. So, and then also in Legion at launch, we got World Quests. Now, World Quests was kind of the modernization of daily quests. So for a daily quest, you actually had to go to a location, pick up the daily quests, and then go do them. And then when you were finished doing all the quests, you went back to the location, you turned it in. Or you could turn in one at a time if you were, a psychopath. World quests, you just went to the location, you automatically got the quest in your quest log, and you finished it. And when you finished it, it automatically completed. You didn't even have to do anything. You didn't have to click yes or accept or complete. It just happened automatically. This was a game changer for doing these quests. They were a really quick way for you to get rep for the different factions, for you to get artifact power. The world quests were great. And over time, Blizzard have slowly been adding, they're like currently in the War Within. You go do world quests, you get Valor Stones. Now, in Midnight, it's going to change because we don't have Valor Stones anymore, but we'll get something else, probably Adventurer Crests or something else. But yeah, world quests is a huge change in World of Warcraft. And then finally, in Legion, in patch 7.2, we got the Mage Tower, which we've talked about. Of course, Mage Tower was it was on the Broken Shore. You could choose one of 3 different things that would give you, or that you could put resources into, and then the Mage Tower was one of them. And when the Mage Tower was up and available, you could go in and do the challenges in it. Which, and if you're not familiar with it, those challenges, if you were able to complete them successfully, and you had to complete them it was like you had to complete a certain number on a tank, on a healer, and a DPS. They gave you artifact appearances. So, and you can't get those appearances anymore. So if there's some weird, really cool looking artifact appearance that you really want, and you look and you can't figure out where it comes from, it's probably Mage Tower. All right. Moving on, we've got Battle for Azeroth. Azerite armor was a very interesting one because Blizzard was like, hey, we liked this idea of giving you these cool and unique abilities with the Legion legendaries and and that was the system that I didn't even think to add into this list, Legion legendaries. See, there's so many Azerite armor. So yeah, Blizzard thought, oh, this would be really cool. And people were really like, having to go grind these different sets, and people hated Azerite armor. It didn't work right off the bat. It was a bad system. The gear technically still exists, but it doesn't really have any power anymore, although I think people have been putting together Azerite armor farming sets with speed on them. So anyway, so that's Azerite armor. That was with the launch of Battle for Azeroth. Also with the launch, we got the Island Expeditions. So this was, you would go to the island, and it was basically like a scenario. Think Miss Pandaria scenarios. You'd go there, you had to clear an objective, and then you got some Azerite power as a result, and then you could get some transmogs from it. It wasn't really a big deal, although a lot of people did it a lot. I didn't really care for the Island Expeditions personally. It was just a thing that Blizzard did to give you something to do, essentially, and to give you a way to get artifact power. The profession revamp again happened in Battle for Azeroth. This time they split all the professions into expansion specific slots. So it was classic leatherworking, then Outland leatherworking, then Northrend leatherworking, etc. So that was in the beginning of Battle for Azeroth. Warfronts, which was sold to us as being like the original Warcraft RTS, but instead just became a clusterfuck of who knows what. I don't even know what that was. Warfronts was so weird. I'm moving on. In patch 8.3, we got Horrific Visions, which we've recently gotten to re-experience through the War Within. And Horrific Visions were interesting because it was, the whole N'Zoth Old God storyline, and it was a really good way to bring us into that. For me, Horrific Visions was kind of like the continuation of the Mage Tower. It was a challenging thing that you had to go do, and you had to just figure out how to do it. It wasn't quite as challenging as the Mage Tower, but it was definitely interesting. And then, of course, you had the corruptions and all that. All right, moving on to Shadowlands. We had the new player experience in Shadowlands. So first of all, with Shadowlands, we got for the first time ever, we had a level reset. So our levels. So if you were level 120 in Battle for Azeroth, when you logged into Shadowlands pre-patch for the very first time, you are now level 50, and the max level was level 60. So that's why when you look back and you go, well, how come Battle for Azeroth was 120 and now we're only level 80? That was why, Shadowlands. That also gave us the new player experience, which it was okay. That was I don't know. It was fine. I'm really hoping that this new player change experience it's a lot better, but yeah, it wasn't great. So we got Chromie time in Shadowlands, We got the Great Vault, Torghast, and the Creation Catalyst, which now is just the Catalyst. These are all features that were added in Shadowlands, and I'm running through this really quickly because, in all honesty, most people have at least played since Battle for Azeroth or Legion, so you're familiar with all these already. You know the Great Vault is what we have currently in Dornogal. You know that Chroming Time is what you do when you're leveling. These things are all familiar. Torghast, however, was something completely different. It was this continuation of, we had the Mage Tower, and then we had the Horrific Visions. Torghast was interesting because it was a roguelike where you would get different powers and different abilities, and the maps changed every time. So every time you went in, there was a different map that you had to go through, and you could get some pretty broken builds in Torghast. It was fun. I liked Torghast. The problem that Blizzard had with it is that they tied it to player power in a not good way. So in order to get the Shadowlands legendaries, you had to do Torghast, but you weren't getting the legendaries, you were getting a currency to create the legendaries. It was just a bad system. The whole thing didn't work right, and I think ultimately it labeled Torghast a failure, but unfairly. It wasn't actually a failure. I think it was a success, but that Blizzard pulled defeat from the jaws of victory with Torghast. And then the Creation Catalyst, of course, that was where you could craft your tier sets. Blizzard brought back tier sets at the end of Shadowlands, and so and that's the same Catalyst we have today. So there you go. And that was patch 9.2 with the Sepulchre of the first ones. All right, so now we're in Dragonflight. And Dragonflight, it feels like it was just yesterday that we had Dragonflight, even though we're at the end of the War Within now. We had our big profession revamp. You know how that goes. The professions are super complicated now. For good, for better or for worse, I don't know. I feel like they overcomplicated professions to make them relevant. Is that a victory? I guess. The public events in Dragonflight were one of those things that it's like the extension of World Quest. So you go, hey, here's a thing that you can go do. But when you get there, out in the world, and when you do it, you're going to get credit for something. I don't know. The public events are a little weird. To me, it's like, and if you're like, what's a public event? This is like the theater troupe, or the lighting the beacons in Hallowfall. In Dragonflight, it was the Siege on Dragonbane Keep, or the Nestingwary Hunting Party, or the cook-off in I forget the name of the zone now, the Yes Chef thing. These are all public events, and so you would get a reward for them. You could do them once a week for credit, and you could do them as many times as you wanted to for lesser rewards, but the main reward you would only get once a week. Skywriting is one of the biggest systems ever added to the game. Now, it was called Dragon Writing in the beginning of Dragonflight, but now it's been renamed to Skywriting. That was a huge thing that Blizzard added to the game. This is a system. This is one of these, when you talk about evergreen systems, this is one of those systems that's going to be around forever. It might change and iterate over time, but it is now part of World of Warcraft forever. They will always have some form of skywriting now that it has been deemed a success. The talent revamp in Dragonflight, I feel, was mostly a success. There were some things about it that I didn't like, but by and large, it was a success. I don't know. It was good. I liked the talent revamp. I think that it gave us too many abilities. I think it should have given us more, plus this much damage, plus this much whatever. It gave us too many defensive cooldowns, too many abilities, too many ways, too many buttons to press, which has led us to now we are trying to reduce the number of buttons that we have to press. So at least they've recognized the issue, but and then we got the trading post in patch 10.0.5, which, love it or hate it, the trading post is also something that's here to stay. It's a good way to get transmog. It's now going to be a good way to get player housing, mounts, toys, pets, all of the ancillary things. There's no player power in it at all. There's nothing that's going to give you an advantage except that you're going to look cooler when you're doing stuff because you have cool transmog. That's about it. Blizzard did experiment with putting some traders' tenders on the store. People didn't like it, and so they said they're never going to do that again. I don't know that that's true. We'll see. They are putting traders' tenders in with the pre-purchase or with the purchase of the expansion with Midnight. Is that a good thing? I don't know. And finally, in Dragonflight, we got the upgrade system revamp, which happened in patch 10.1. So this is where we've got our now famous Explorer, Adventurer, Veteran Champion gear. This was the beginning of it. So this was the Aberrus raid patch. So when we got this, it's really changed WoW, and I feel like in a lot of ways it's actually made the bloat of item level even worse. But we are getting an item level squish in the in Midnight. So hopefully that maybe we'll just get an item level squish every 2 expansions or so. I guess we'll see. And that's it from Dragonflight. So, and now of course with the War Within, there were 3 things that I wanted to highlight here. Of course, being delves. We all know delves. Warbands. Everybody loves a good warband. And World Soul Memories, which was a smaller thing, but it was a really good. It was like a public event, but it was different. It gave you something to go do. You had a currency and you would go spend it. So I do like the World Soul Memories. I don't know if that's something that's going to continue or if that's just isolated to the War Within. It could be a World Soul Saga thing. I guess we'll see. So there we go. So now we're current. Now, why am I bringing up all of this? Why am I talking about all of these things? Because Blizzard has, throughout the history of WoW, continuously iterated on and added systems for the future of WoW. And the most current thing that we had, and I specifically skipped these when I was going through it, we had 2 events that occurred during the end of Dragonflight that I feel have completely changed the face of WoW forever. And that, of course, was Plunderstorm and WoW Remix. Plunderstorm was launched in patch 10.2.6, and WoW Remix launched in patch 10.2.7 with Myth Pandaria Remix. And instead of having a event in-game where you go take your character over and you do something, this is completely different. Especially Plunderstorm, which was a completely separate game world. You weren't even part of World of Warcraft. You were playing a World of Warcraft character. Your actions were different. Your goals were different. It was a battle royale. It was a completely different thing. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. And I could see Plunderstorm being used as some sort of a PvP brawl in the future or something like that. I could see Blizzard trying to tweak that a little bit. But it came in as an event that changed the way World of Warcraft works. And the same thing with Remix. Remix gave us a new way to experience the game with a completely different power system, with a completely different upgrade system and gear and scaling and all of the things that we are familiar with. It threw all that out and gave us something completely different. Now, of course, that led to things being broken and having issues, but by and large, both Remix versions that we've had, Myth Pandaria and now Legion, have been a success and have been hugely appreciated by the player population. What Legion Remix has given us now is a way to not only experience the old content, a way to level up an alt, a way to get old transmogs, old mounts, a way to focus in on something that maybe you didn't really care about before. If you were leveling up an alt, even if you're doing Legion Chromie time, there's no way you're finishing the entire storyline. There's no way. And you're not doing the raids. You're going to do a handful of dungeons, maybe. And that's it. Then you move on. Now you're at the War Within, and you don't even think about Legion anymore. This gives us a way to focus on the expansion like when it was new, like when it was current content, but in a different way, using our current talent trees, using a different power scaling system. It makes it fun. And what really makes the Remix mode interesting is the ability to scale up higher and higher. Instead of leveling up, our power just continues to grow. Yes, there's a cap for your power in Remix, but it's so high up there. Yeah, people will reach it, but man, it's ridiculous. I can't imagine what it would be like to run around with 999% versatility. That's going to be crazy. Anyway, there have been a few things in Remix that I've really enjoyed, and there have been a few things in Remix that I haven't enjoyed. And that's why I wanted to take this topic and approach it in this manner. I know it took some time to go through all of these systems, but I wanted to make a point, which is these things have all been something in the game that we were able to do. And finally, Blizzard have figured out that if you give us an event, it doesn't even have to be in the current game world. It can be in a game world that's time gated in a different way. Oh, you're a time runner. You're separated from the rest of, you can still be in your regular guild and you can talk to regular characters, but you are in a different place. It's a specialized event. And that makes it so much better than if it was just, hey, you guys can go run Legion if you want. We'll scale it up to current level and you could go run Legion and get your transmog. That's not fun. We got that with Collector's Bounty and that was cool for like a week or two. But after that, it's like, well, what's the point? What is the point of doing this? I'm not getting anything. I'm just mindlessly grinding raids trying to get mount drops. And people specifically ignored Legion during the Collector's Bounty. Most people, not all. Most people specifically ignored Legion because they knew Legion Remix was coming and they would have a more fun way to get all of these mounts and transmogs. And it's more fun. So in Legion Remix, we go in, you start off and you go and you do whatever you're going to do. You pick your character, you go in, you do the starting quest line, you get your artifact weapon. And there's a whole quest line with, you're time traveling, so you're actually going to steal the artifact weapon from time, and then you have to replace it with a simulacrum, and then you have to, when you get your artifact weapon later, it's actually the fake. It's fine. It's cute. I like it. But then the leveling in Legion Remix is really interesting because in Miss Pandaria, you had access to every single raid and dungeon right off the bat. And you had to level up to get them. But as you were leveling, it was like, ooh, now I can run this raid. Ooh, now I can run this dungeon or whatever. I can do these things now. Whereas in Legion, we are time gated. We can't do anything other than Emerald Nightmare and Trial of Hour, which I don't know that that's a bad thing. I think maybe there was too much content in Miss Pandaria and you couldn't quite process everything. We're going to run Emerald Nightmare and Trial of Valor so many times we're going to be sick of it. We're going to be done. I'm done. I don't want to see this raid again. And then it'll be time to do Nighthold. The same thing. 2 weeks of Nighthold, 2 weeks of Tomb of Sargeras, 2 weeks of Antorus, and then we're going to get super powered mode where we're going to get even more power. I like this better than what we got in Miss Pandaria. I think this is a smarter way to do it. Now, is there an issue with, I want to be able to do all the raids so I can get all my power? Yes, people are going to complain about that. But I think at the end of the day, this is a better way to do it. Sometimes Blizzard has to save us from ourselves. It's just the truth. And if you go back and you look at all of these different game modes that have been added, all these different game systems that have been added to World of Warcraft throughout the years, Blizzard has constantly put things in to help us, to save us from ourselves, to protect us from our own foolishness and our own ridiculousness. So, yes, challenge mode was fun, but they gave us a different way to do it. No. You actually have to kill a certain percentage of mobs, so you can't just skip jump your way through the end of the dungeon. They're saving us from ourselves. Let's go have fun, not let's see how fast we can go, because that just creates so much stress and tension. Yeah, you still have to go fast because you still have a timer in Mythic Plus. But it's better. It's like taking that original idea and refining it. And that's what they're doing, is they're giving us these rules. Legion Remix, they took the original idea of Miss Pandaria Remix and they've refined it. And they go, here's a better version of this. Now, I saw a post on Reddit where somebody jokingly asked, lol, when are we getting Shadowlands Remix? That's next, right? Now, I brought this up a few episodes ago. I actually think Shadowlands Remix is a great idea. And most of the people in that Reddit thread thought the same thing, that Shadowlands Remix is actually going to be a great idea. I wouldn't be surprised if we got Shadowlands Remix here in the next year or so. Just mark my words. I think it's going to happen. But anyway, we'll see. There have been a lot of things that have changed about the remix mode. For one thing, Blizzard split apart the bronze and now gave us infinite power as a power currency, and the bronze is purely a cosmetic currency. I think that's much better. I hated having to decide between upgrading my gear with bronze and purchasing the things that I was here for. Here's why I'm here, to get these items. Why would I use that to upgrade my gear? I'll just buy the stuff. But if you upgrade your gear, then you can get more bronze, so you can buy more stuff. It's just this weird gameplay loop. This is much better. The infinite power system works really well for the most part. There are a few things that I wish that it did a little bit differently, but I think by and large, it's good. What I don't like about Legion Remix compared to Mists of Pandaria is that you cannot upgrade your gear. You can replace your gear, but your gear is at a fixed item level when you get it, and you cannot change that item level. So if you get a trinket that has the effect that you want, but it's a 604, and you're now at item level 640, you still have that low level trinket on because that's the effect that you want. So that feels a little bad. I will say I liked being able to upgrade my gear and take it. And, you know, again, Blizzard is iterating on all of these things they've done in the past where they go, here's all of these things. Is upgrading your gear the best way to go? Probably not. It's probably actually worse for us. We've seen how bad it is when you upgrade your gear, how complicated things are going to get. You really think Blizzard's just going to give us a way to upgrade our gear endlessly without having to worry about, oh, I'm spending the money that I should be spending on my cosmetics on upgrading my gear? No, that's why they did that. They did it this way because otherwise we're going to be ridiculous about it. This is what we do. That's what players do. So yes, while I don't like that, I do understand, and I think it's the right choice. I think that having the world quests really changes things around. I mean, I'm exalted on several of the factions already on my Death Knight. Now, I wish that Legion reputations had been warbound by this point, but they're not, and that's fine. So it's okay. We'll survive. The raids themselves, raids are a little harder than I had wanted, and by hard I don't mean they're difficult. I mean that it takes longer to kill the bosses than I had hoped. And I think part of that is just the power scaling is a little off. So they probably created the raids with the intention of people having much more power, like as what we're going to have when we do the Nighthold or when we do Tomb of Sargeras. We're going to have a lot more power when we get to those raids. So those raids are probably going to feel a lot easier than the current raids do when we're all still building up our power. So I think long term that's going to be better for us to have the raids be difficult, because otherwise what ends up happening is people run in and they one-shot the boss if they can, and then if you weren't there yet, you don't even get credit for it, but you're locked out of the boss. So that doesn't feel good. I think the infinite knowledge system is really good. I really like the way that they've implemented that, where it's achievement based. So, you get an achievement, here's an extra point. It's going to make you earn infinite power faster. I like that. I like that a lot. I wish that they weren't all locked behind the rollout phases, but I get it. It's, you know, this one's, you have to do every single dungeon in the game. Well, those won't all be available until the Argus patch becomes available in November. So that's fine. We'll get there eventually. So I'm not frustrated with that necessarily. I just, you know, it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. I think overall Legion Remix has been a lot of fun. And this has been the first week. We still have 90 plus days of Legion Remix to go, which means that in theory, I'll be super powerful by the time the final raid rolls around, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. We don't know anything other than, yeah, here's what we want to get. Here's the gear that we want, and we'll see how that goes. By and large, I'd say that the biggest frustration that I have is the tank meta. The fact that the best way to do anything in Legion Remix is to play a tank. That stinks. And Blizzard has addressed this. They're buffing damage and healer characters. But come on, how could you not know that tanks were going to be the meta? That people are doing 5 tank Mythic Plus runs. That's insane. So overall, I'd say Legion Remix is a success. I think that this is probably the way that Blizzard is going to do some of these new systems going forward. You know, okay, so the Profession revamp, yeah, that's in game, but Horrific Visions, maybe that's an event that we get. Oh, it's the Horrific Visions event. It's coming back. When you log in, you get a character that goes and does the Horrific Visions, and you're doing all these different things. And at the end of the event, you collect all of your rewards and you send them over to your account, just like in Remix. That would be kind of cool. And obviously not horrific visions, but that type of thing. Torghast would be a really good example of that. Rather than logging in to do Legion Remix, or maybe if we get Shadowlands Remix, maybe Torghast is a thing that you get to go do. It's you just log in and you have a character and you go do Torghast and treat it like an actual roguelike, where you're going and you just scale forever. The tower goes up to 999. And so the goal is to get as high as you can. You get achievements every 20 levels or every 25 levels or whatever it is. That could be a way to do that. And again, I'm not saying bring Torghast back specifically. I'm saying that's the type of thing that we could do in this type of mode. It doesn't have to be in game. It can be an event where it's like, this is back. It's like the McRib. The McRib is not here all the time. And so when it comes back, people get excited, even though the McRib is terrible. It's the nastiest sandwich at McDonald's. But people get excited because it wasn't there. And now it's back. Oh my God, the McRib is back. Okay, cool, man. Cool story. I hope you enjoy that McRib. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm hoping that with what we have in the game currently and the system changes that we've had, that Blizzard is able to leverage the success of Remix and Plunderstorm into here's how these types of things, the limited time events, are going to go moving forward. I'm really excited about that. I think it's a great way to do it. Make it tied to your WoW character. Obviously, I wouldn't want to play WoW and have it not, on a different account. What's the point of that? You're trying to get rewards. You're trying to get some sort of achievements that you can then bring over to your main account. It'll show up on your main account and you're like, hey, here's this thing that I did. It was really fun. And that way, when in the future, when the Mage Tower rewards are no longer available, you can say I did it because I was there and this event happened and it was a big deal. So anyway, those are my thoughts. There's a lot going on about Legion Remix right now and a lot of discussions. And rather than telling you all of the things, here's the top 30 ways that you can gain power in Legion Remix, go watch a video on that. There's a ton of YouTubers out there who have done all the research and figured all of this stuff. That's not me. That's not who I am. I'm here to tell you, this is what I think Blizzard should do with this type of game mode. I'm having fun, and that's what it boils down to. So, all right. That's going to wrap up our show for today. Thank you so much for listening and for watching. I really do appreciate it. It is always a pleasure and a privilege for me to get this microphone and speak to you. If you're enjoying the show, you could help us out by giving us a like and a comment and subscribe on YouTube, or by giving us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Those things all help us with our distribution. So if you are able to do that, we would be very grateful. If you want to do more to help us out, you could consider joining our Patreon. It's patreon.com/Azeroth United. Patreon is where people can give their real life money to help out with the production of the show. And we have 3 tiers of patrons. We do have a free tier if you just want to join and jump in on the Patreon. We also have 2 paid tiers. And I do want to thank our paid tier, our friend of the show patrons right now. That is Judge Omni, Stug Life, Thelio, Greybeard, and Raven. Thank you all so much. I really do appreciate it. You definitely help make Azeroth United possible. You guys are the best. So, and that's it. That's our show. Thank you again so much. Remember to be good to each other out there. That's a real life person on the other side of that keyboard. And maybe they're playing Legion Remix, or maybe they are busy doing Warlords of Draenor time walking. Who knows? But you can be nice and be kind. Don't run off with the group, one-shotting everything and leave everyone back at the beginning. They're going to be so irritated. Just be patient and wait. It's okay. All right. Take care. I love you all. And I'll see you in Azeroth.